Welcome to Breaking 70, Race Against Father Time, Chasing Dreams and Defying Time with Brian Bailey.
All right, Golf Castle members, this is Brian Bailey here bringing you our, I can't remember, I think the 7th edition of Greens and Grain, Breaking 70, right? This has been kind of fun. Injury update, I'm doing much better. I'm hoping, I have 2 more PT appointments. I'm hoping to be released after basically the last week of February to start swinging the golf club again. I'm doing much more normal things now, so I think my recovery, being an old fat dude, is well underway. So I'm hoping by March to be able to start swinging, which will be really good because I'm going to transition into short game, and then hopefully by April, the original premise will get back on board and I'll start touring the country with the best coaches that I know of, giving sound advice on how to break 70. And then hopefully I'll be able to get out on the golf course. Now, granted, this winter's been awful, so injury-wise, it was a good time. We've gotten so much snow here in the Mid-Atlantic, cold weather, so we actually had winter this year. So I'm hoping that even this delay is not so bad, but I think this delay is just like golf and in life. It's thrown me a kind of a monkey wrench, changed what I thought was going to happen. But I actually like the idea of going back to some basic fundamentals inside of short game, inside of putting. Long game is not my strength in coaching, so I'll leave that to a lot smarter people than I. But building some of those fundamentals and understanding what's important is really cool, and I've actually set y'all up. We'll see who out there has figured out where I'm setting you up right now. But again, I think it's a really good way to go back into thinking fundamentals. And again, not everyone here is trying to break 70. You're trying to break 100, trying to break 90. These fundamentals are key building blocks to get to where you want. So I'll stop rambling on about that. So what we're going to talk about now is we're inside the putting stroke. We talked about setup, kind of how are we physically going to set up the machine, the system, to make a putt. We talked about different grip styles. From the grip styles, we will get into talking about different orientations of where we place the arms and things along that, head tilts, all that great stuff. But we're going to talk about motion next. Again, how do we move the club? What does that look like? Most people get this wrong, and a lot of golf magazines, I would say, is the blame. So when a lot of times when people are saying that it's a shoulder motion or to move the putter, it's not really a shoulder motion. Your shoulders can move in 360 degrees, right? It's a ball and socket, so your arm can move all kind of crazy places. So if it was truly a kind of shoulder connective piece, it'd be a really inefficient way of putting. And you see this a lot. You'll see people that'll rock their shoulders, so they'll raise their shoulder, like they'll bring the putter back, raise the shoulder, and then they'll raise the shoulder through. So they'll kind of rock their shoulders. Not really an efficient way to do it. And I see this all too often from a lot of people that read golf magazines when they're talking about a shoulder stroke or things like that. And to me, that's just a misunderstanding of what they're trying to characterize. So you have the torso, the rib cage, you do have your arms. They can actually produce speed as well. You have your hands. But in the putting motion, we're really trying to limit the hands. We're really trying to eliminate the arms running off on their own direction. So what that really leaves us is a lot of torso action. How do we move the club? And this is, I think, the biggest key in and around the green is understanding that the torso does a disproportionate amount of the work. So to be able to hit a ball, we can use arm speeds and move really fast. That's an option. Or we can rotate a large mass and hit it with mass, and we would need a much smaller swing to be able to provide the same forces. So most people go wrong inside of putting and creating energy and speed on the putting green is they try to do it with smaller muscles with accelerations. Accelerations are dangerous because it's hard to accelerate the same every time. It is much easier to rotate back this distance and through this distance, and that will give me an actual result. And again, I can actually feel, so right now sitting in this chair, if I close my eyes, if I wanted to putt the ball 10 feet, that is my chest rotation. I've trained it so much, I know what that feels like. Right? For arm speed, that would be hard. And you can always tell arm speed guys are really on the putting green, especially practicing. Their first 1 or 2 putts are all over the place, but once they dial in the acceleration for their arms, they can start to deliver the ball very well. The problem is golf is not played that way, right? You don't have the ability to hit 3 putts and then say, all right, this one counts. Well, You do have the ability, but it's not within the rules of golf. So what we've got to be able to start to do is create a feel. When I turn this and I turn this through, this happens. And I think this is also with short game. Most short game players do too much work with their arms and hands, less with their torso. And again, it really prevents them from one of the key aspects of anything around the green is distance control, right? Being able to hit the ball a certain distance on the putting green, being able to roll it a certain distance, short game, being able to hit it a certain distance to create the shot I need. And that should be really driven with torso. And again, I would say it's been coached better in the last decade, but it's still a big gap there. Most people in their learning curve spend much more time with on the range with coaches and less time around the green or on the green. So again, I think for breaking 70, what has to happen is your ball striking's gotten you up to this point. Like you hit it well enough to break 70. Now it's starting to find that little bit of improvement inside a short game and that little improvement inside of putting that'll kind of elevate you to that next level. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump over here on the putting board and we're going to talk about the most efficient way to kind of move your putter, and then some other ways that people move it that can work for a player but are less efficient and have to be trained disproportionately more, right? So think of it this way. If you're going to do something outside of normal, outside of the most efficient way of doing it, that means we have a lot more parts to keep up with, which means we have to train the heck out of it a lot more. If we're going to start using a lot of small muscles, a lot of quick acceleration pieces with hands and arms and things like that, then we have to train that more if that's going to become our baseline, because it's very hard to take a few weeks off and have that feel back, right? Like I said, I know this is 10 feet, that's 10 feet. I can take a month off, it's still 10 feet. And honestly, I have taken a month off, but I'm very, very confident that if you put me on a putting green right now, on a 10-foot putt, don't care what the green speed is, I can deliver it 10 to 12 feet every time. That's just because I've trained the system enough to accomplish that. But again, if I'm doing that with a lot of small hand acceleration pieces, I would not give you the confidence. Like I would be like, I can do that by the end of the day. Give me 10 minutes to kind of feel things out, feel like acceleration appearance, square my face, do all these things. Then I can start to do it. So again, that is not being efficient. So what we really start to learn is, and this is why older golfers, we can't swing as much, but we've created a system and we're very efficient inside of our system. That's why we have to train, we can train less and hit less balls and do less things physically, because we have an efficient system that we don't have to be on top of it and hit 10,000 golf balls every year to make sure that our golf swing and the golf ball is doing what we need it to do, which comes with experience, but also comes with age, right? We just can't do it anymore. So let's dive over here on the putting green. We're going to talk about how we're going to actually move the putter. And at the very end, I'm going to show you or kind of talk to you about how I've set you up to this point. I think it's a great way of getting you to think differently, especially when you're thinking of training, as well as how you interact and hire a coach. So I'll give that to you at the end. Cheers.
Join us at Greens and Green Society, where golf and whiskey unite. As an exclusive member, you'll have epic meetups and invites to the finest golf and whiskey adventures around the world. Join the best community on the planet, because passion deserves company. Greens and Grain Society. Cheers to the game, cheers to you, and find us at golfcast.com.
All right, Golfcast members, this is Brian Bailey, and we're talking breaking 70. How are we going to start to move the putter, right? So I always say there's 4 runners in creating power inside of the golf swing. There's much more than that, but this is kind of the 4 main classifications. We have how our lower body turns, so think of full swing, how that motion creates power, right? We have the ability to turn our chest and bring mass and power that way. We have the ability to throw our arms like a frisbee. And then of course we have the ability to throw the hand as well. All speed variables, all ways of bringing power inside the golf swing. We know we don't want a lot of this. We might get a little of this through impact. Most players, if you look at the 3D data, shows that they have a little bit of, there's always a little bit of hand motion, but it's nothing crazy. By the eye, you usually don't even notice it. Arms, we don't want a lot of arm action, right? So what that really means is if we get in our good setup position, right, we want to take the torso, go around our spine and around our spine. So again, if I come down the line, if we go around our spine, you can see this is a very, very good path and plane for the putter to be working on. And so what we want to understand is we want to move the torso. The torso is key. What I tend to see most people go wrong is they think it's a shoulder or a side tilt game, right? So they'll side tilt, head goes forward, side tilt, head goes back. This works really well if you're outside with the sun. The sun's kind of at your back, you can see your shadow. Ideally, if we rotate our chest, the head shouldn't move. The reason our head moves this way is we're actually tilting, right? And the reason we tilt back, because if we tilt, put our head forward and we leave it forward, and we try to tilt, we're literally gonna fall over, right? So the reason that we side tilt back, our head goes back, it actually works as kind of a lever, so as we're extending this way by leaning back, that allows us to stay relatively in balance. Lots of issues with that putting stroke, but that's probably the most common putting stroke you'll see is because people think it's a shoulder motion, rock, rock. So they're creating, shoulder motion creates more of a side tilt game. Again, a lot of times you'll see that inside of the putting magazines and things along that lines, they go heavily talking about shoulders. It's more of a torso game. So what we want to be able to start to do, again, if we go back to our, stick our butt out, pray, 90 down, get in good position, figure out what grip works best, play around with that. Again, we're going to talk about orientation of arms. We'll do that in the future. But from here, we're going to basically get in the position that we want. And all we want to do is try to keep arms and hands still and rotate the chest. So move the torso back and move the torso through. If we're able to do that, the motion is very well in balance. So what that means is both hands and arms are moving at the same speed, that we're not trying to add, pull, or anything. We're allowing the mass of the chest to do the majority of work. That's ideal. Now, you're probably going to be a version of, if you've never really putted this way, this is going to be a really big challenge. If you've putted most of your life with some arm movements and things like this, this will be a big change. And I'll give you some great drills in the future on how to accomplish that. But just starting to understand that we want this, right? So a towel under your arms works really good. I use the preacher curls, like you have the preacher curl bar that hangs across, puts your elbows in all in position, and it forces that. So we've got to learn to turn. Simple, I'm gonna leave it at that. Where I've set you up, I said in the beginning, we set you up. I've shown you how to get in a good setup position. Does that help? Of course it does. It's a building block to get better. I showed you a bunch of different grips. Do those help? If you find the right grip, it will help. And then how we move the club in space, does that help? Could, all right, if we're putting kind of quirkily with a bunch of little things, moving to bigger body pieces, does that help? It could, but have you gotten better from those 3 lessons that we already just given you? I would suffice to say, not nearly gotten as good as you could have. What? You mean all this technical work and all this great understanding hasn't made me much better? It's given you the platform to be able to repeat and produce a product that will be better, but it doesn't mean you're better today. And there's our issue, right? Most golf lessons, most golf coaches teach exactly this method. What we've got to understand is how does all these pieces we just build work to performance. So we got to talk about skills. Again, let's talk about what do we need to be able to do to putt well. We need to be able to deliver the ball or the club of the face square at impact. Does it need to be square at address? No, but it helps. So we have to be able to control face at impact. What else do we have to control? We have to control how the club is coming into the ball, angle of attack. Is it steep? Are we creating negative loft? Are we hands back? How are we creating that angle of attack into the ball? That's huge in being able to control distance. What I see with a lot of players is they tend to get really steep, hit down, they hit the ball into the dirt, it bounces, so they think they have a loft issue. It's not a loft issue, it's an angle of attack issue. So a skill is we gotta be able to control that. Another skill would be hitting it on the toe, center, or heel with path. Not open and closed face, but actually impact points on the putter. Does our putting stroke allow us to hit the center face, or do we move to the heel? Do we move to the toe? What does that look like? We've got to be able to control that. So these are huge skill pieces that we have to control that most people don't even train. There's 2 others I'll give you later, next video series, but what we need to do is create a system that allows us to be able to do that efficiently. So it's a chicken and egg question. What's more important? Our ability to control these skills or to build the perfect putting stroke to have the skills? Most people go B. I need to build the perfect, if I build the perfect system, then the rest will come. It might not. To me, I think what's more important is start with the skills. Can I a good skill drill for you by the next time I see you? Get it about 8 feet on a straight putt to the hole, and then what I want you to be able to do is set up in whatever your new setup position, new grip, and then what I want you to do is hit one ball that burns the left edge, one ball that burns the right edge, one ball that goes in the center of the cup. Can't change anything at setup, but I want the face to be slightly closed, slightly open, and square. So your face needs to be about 1 degree closed and open to burn edges, and then basically can you be in between that tolerance, and you should put it in the hole. So there's your skills test for next week, and we're going to talk next week more about the different skills and how to start building skills. And then here's the beauty: if we talk skills, and then we're going to start overlaying some setup pieces, some grip pieces, start talking about orientation of the arm, the head, and things like that, then all of a sudden we build a performance skill-based stroke with the correct technical components to allow you to achieve the performance. Now we have coaching, right? So be very, very careful when you go to a coach and all they teach is technical work. Technique is important, but it's not the biggest piece. The biggest piece is skills. Now, if you create something that's dangerous, can be harmful to you, or create injuries, we want to get that out of the system quickly. But on the putting green, I see too many people trying to be perfect in technique, when technique is not what makes you better. It's your ability, the skills to control these pieces to be able to make more putts. Chicken and egg, I get it. But again, to me, as a higher handicapper, it's much more important to know that I can control the face. How I do it physically is less important. Now, when I'm getting very low numbers, those technical pieces are very, very important, because we want a system that's efficient and repeatable. But higher handicappers, the better I can get my face, the better I can control angle of attack, the better I can control where I'm hitting on the face, is only going to make you a better player. So be on the lookout for that'll be next week's video series. But again, enjoy, keep working on setup, keep trying and playing around, fixing those grips. Start thinking about how you move the body in space. Again, the big racer, the big power creator will be our chest. Once we get there, man, we are off to the races with skill testing. Once we start to evaluate skill and understand our skill, now we can build our training system to highlight areas that we're weaker and to stabilize or maintain areas, benchmark them, what we're really, really good at. And the beauty of the system is once we do this, your training becomes much shorter, much more efficient, and who doesn't like less work, better results on the golf course? Cheers.
After the final putt drops, the real conversation begins. Welcome to the 19th hole at Golfcast, the exclusive forum where whiskey meets golf, and great minds sip and share. From deep dives into the short game to raising a glass to the finest pours, this is where legends unwind. Join the discussion, share your take, and be part of the clubhouse talk. Only at the 19th hole, where golf and whiskey speak the same language. Cheers, my friend.